Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Healthy Project podcast. I'm your host, Dion Lewis. And today I got a story that hits close to home for everyone who cares about public health, justice, and the future of our planet. I want to talk about an episode I did back in 2022 with my guest, Marisol Iglesias-Gonzalez. It was called The Health Impacts of Climate Change. And it really opened my eyes to how much environmental factors can affect our health. I'll drop that link in this episode in the description if you want to check it out. One of the most impactful stories I learned from that episode is the story of Ella Roberta Kissi-Debrah. I'm going to tell you about her story today because it's a story that pushes us to look deeper into the relationship between climate change, air pollution, and health disparities. So sit back, take it all in, and reflect on what we can do to make sure we never have to tell another story like Ella's again. Okay, so let's get into it. Ella Roberta Kissi-Debrah was just 9 years old when she passed away in February 2013. 9 years old. That's third grade. But what's most heartbreaking isn't just that she passed away so young, it's the reason why. Ella lived in Lewisham, southeast London, not far from one of the busiest and most polluted roads in the UK, the South Circular Road. Now imagine growing up somewhere where the air you breathe every day is making you sick, and not in an obvious way where you know what's happening, more like in a slow, invisible way. That was Ella's life. She suffered from severe asthma. And from 2010 to 2013, she was admitted to the hospital 27 times. Think about that, 27 times in 3 years. Now, that's practically living in the hospital. Her mom, Rosamund, did everything she could. She was her advocate, fighting for her right treatment, the right care. But asthma is a monster. And it's even worse when the air quality is working against you. Every attack was brutal, and despite her mom's effort, Ella passed away after a massive asthma attack. But the story doesn't end there. Ella's mom didn't just grieve, she sought answers. And in 2020, 7 years after Ella's death, something unprecedented happened. The UK held a second inquest into her death and concluded that air pollution was a direct cause of Ella's death. Let me repeat that. Air pollution was a direct cause of her death. This was the first time in the UK that air pollution had ever been listed as the cause of death. Ever. Now, I want you to think about the weight of that for a moment. Air, the thing we all breathe, that surrounds us, that we can't live without, was responsible for ending a life. But Ella's story is more than just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call, a call to action. Because the truth is, air pollution doesn't just affect one child in one city. It's affecting millions of people, disproportionately people of color, low-income communities, and children like Ella, who don't get a choice about where they live. Ella lived in a highly polluted area, and the air quality was way over the World Health Organization's guidelines. And you might be thinking, well, okay, Corey, that's London. But what does that have to do with us? But let me break it down for you. Here in the US, there are cities where air pollution is a silent killer too. Places like Los Angeles, New York, and Houston. But it's not just the big cities. Rural communities get it too. Near industrial plants, Black and brown communities, living near highways. These places are also affected. Let me take you back to that 2022 episode with Marisol. We talked about a lot. We talked about how climate change isn't just this abstract idea or something that's happening years down the line. It's happening now. And one of the clearest ways we see it is through air pollution. Warmer temperatures, wildfires, industrial emissions, all these things are making the air more toxic. And the people suffering the most, they're not the ones contributing the most to climate change, are they? No. It's the kids in low-income neighborhoods, the elderly, and people with chronic conditions just like Ella. And that's why this story matters. Because Ella's death wasn't inevitable. It was preventable. The same way the air pollution levels in her neighborhood could have been lowered in action had been taken sooner? And I'm not talking about just any action. I'm talking about the right action. Policies that enforce clean air standards, urban planning that prioritizes green spaces, holding industries accountable for their emissions, and yes, making sure that climate change doesn't push us further into a health crisis. I remember when Rosamund, Ella's mother, said after the inquest, "We now have the justice for her that she deserves." It took 7 years, but that justice should have come from preventative measures, not from a court ruling after her death. Because no mother should have to bury her child because of the air they breathe. Now let's talk solutions. What can we do to prevent another story like Ella's? First, we need to address the air pollution at a systemic level. That means supporting environmental policies that actually work, policies that don't just focus on cutting emissions in wealthy areas, but prioritize the most vulnerable. You see, air pollution is a form of inequality. The people who contribute the least to it are the ones who suffer the most from its effects. If we don't start treating this as a public health crisis, we're going to continue seeing more cases like Ella's. And it won't just be asthma. It's going to be cardiovascular disease, stroke, even mental health issues linked to pollution. Another thing we can do, advocate. Advocate like Rosamund did for her daughter. Be that voice that says, this isn't okay. Speak up when you see injustice, whether that's the placement of a highway in a low-income neighborhood or a lack of green spaces in urban areas. Because your voice matters, and so does your action. Look, I know this sounds a little bit overwhelming, but we've got to start somewhere, right? So I challenge you today. Check out the air quality in your area. There are apps you can download that'll tell you the pollution levels where you live. And if they're not where they should be, start asking why. Get involved with local organizations fighting for cleaner air. If you have the power to vote for leaders who take climate change and public health seriously, because it should be taken seriously. I'll leave you with this. Ella's story is tragic, yes, but it's also a story of resilience, a story of a mother who refused to let her daughter's death be in vain. And because of her fight, Ella's name will forever be tied to the movement for clean air. Her story has already changed the conversation around air pollution in the UK, and it's up to us to carry that conversation forward wherever we are. All right, that's it for today's episode. Make sure you check out that 2022 episode with Marisol about the health impacts of climate change. It really sets the stage for everything we talked about today. That link is in the description. And as always, stay informed, stay healthy. This is Dion Lewis. I'll holler at you next time.